Okay. I'm just checking. We're live on Facebook. Apparently, it's very deceptive. I do apologize for my vagueness. Good morning, everybody. Live on Facebook. Welcome to this particular webinar, which is eliciting feedback. So, feedback, please, from Terry. What's today about for you, Terry?
Right. I've got. I think you need to repeat the question.
Kev, what's today about for you?
I'm interested to find out where feedback comes and how we elicit feedback from other people. In my shortened version.
Yeah, shortened version. Terry, do you want to speak now?
Can I forever hold my peace instead?
Absolutely, but make sure you're sitting down.
I'll go next. I'm interested today in finding out about people's barriers when they try to elicit feedback.
Ooh, oh, I like that.
In your face, not listening.
Yeah. I do love it. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Kev. Sammy.
Good morning, everybody. I am interested in people's thoughts upon the difference between us giving feedback and us eliciting feedback, thinking about perspectives. So I'll shut up there, otherwise I'll just say everything and then there'll be nothing left to say. So
it's all about giving and receiving. Thank you very much, Sammy. I do like that. Where's Neil gone? Oh, there you are, right in the middle. Thank you, Neil. I couldn't find you then.
Yeah, today for me it's about how people use it to analyse feedback and improve self-awareness as well.
Absolutely brilliant. For me, I really want to make sure that people understand the words better than I ever have done, because eliciting is one of those words. I hear something else about lampposts and ladies of the night, and apparently the words are not the same at all, but it's the word elicit and it's the word feedback, because it thank you, Steve. It is about understanding those words, because eliciting is about drawing out, evoking and bringing out. And that is a different thing about the giving feedback that they refer to on the standards check form. Was sufficient feedback given is a misleading statement to me personally, because it's suggesting things. So it's what Sammy was talking about. So I'm hoping all of those things are going to come out. Plus the other thing is, feedback to me was something from my gigging years. Feedback was that high-pitched screech that the stereo systems were doing when the microphone was feeding back, but it's a circular thing. So it's when the output is linked with the input and it is a circle. And that's another thing about feedback for me. It's a cyclical thing. It is the root, and that's why feedback and feedback are the same thing, although they should be something different. Well, seeing as no one ever asked me what I think, I've given my 2 pence without being asked. Who's going to open? Has anyone got anything to do, or has Kev got a question to ask to get something going? Good.
Sammy.
Yeah, Sammy, please.
well, I was just going to expand on what you said about feedback, you know, from your music days, whatever it was you did on stage with your soliciting. In that, yes, you did get feedback. But I want to talk about your self-knowledge and how feedback, if we give that feedback, we're just giving them our opinion, our worldview, made up of our own experiences, etc., etc. And the eliciting feedback is, again, it's coming from their perspective. So it's made up of their experiences, their thoughts, their beliefs, you know, and that's promoting self-reliance in reflection, which is something that they, you know, they can take forward again and again, promoting growth. And it is solution focused, the eliciting feedback. So, you know, I just wanted to say that before it went out of my head.
Can you repeat that, Sammy, so I can write it down?
No. And it's all gone silent.
I think we were all waiting for you to repeat.
I think that's feedback as well, you know, getting the silence. If you get a silence, you're starting to reflect upon what you've said, and generally we think, what have we said wrong? Why isn't anybody giving me anything back? So that's an interesting one to observe.
Absolutely.
Silence.
Absolutely. Yeah. Welcome, Linda. You were called Kev for a while, so I've changed your name. I know.
Better looking than Kev.
Absolutely. More lovely. It says in her name, she's more lovely. I couldn't help it, Linda. Do you want me to get rid of it? You know, you remembered it's about feedback today, eliciting feedback. Can anyone think of the phrase eliciting feedback without thinking of Susan McCormack? I can't. I cannot think about that phrase without our beloved Sue. No, Sammy, you've raised a good point, but you know, who remembers feedback in the old days? Di, you must be chomping at the bit, thinking about feedback in the old days of the part 3 and the old check test. Feedback, what was it all about?
It was about the to be polite. Can I be polite? No, it was a praise sandwich. Yeah, I won't say what we used to call it, but it was a praise sandwich. So basically, it's sort of disguising the bad around the good. It's softening the blow. It's a judgment from the instructor that's supposed to help the student. And in fact, what it actually does, it destroys them. It's a very, very negative way of giving feedback. And I'm very pleased that we've moved forward from there.
That's it. So by way of example, oh, all right then. Oh, I wanted to give an example. But Terry, go for it.
Give an example, Fiona. I can wait.
Terry, you know, it's so good to have you here, Terry. I'm so glad you're here. It's a shame you had nothing to say about what the title was, you know, about soliciting feedback. I've got the word in my head now. But, you know, where you came back a little bit later and you always give that lovely input. It's just absolutely wonderful. Fabulous. Thanks, Terry. I've got you, Steve. I'll come to you in a sec. And Linda. So, Terry, talk to me.
When I was delivering a BTEC last year, when was this year actually, and we were talking about this in the BTEC, one of the attendees came up with a fantastic way of explaining the praise sandwich. And it was, he piped up, so Gulf family, if you're listening, thanks for this, it's a gem. He said, the praise sandwich is just a diplomatic slap in the face. And I thought that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it is.
A diplomatic slap in the face. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Thanks, Terry. I have to agree. I do have to agree. That was my lame attempt at the praise sandwich for Terry. It's a good, bad, good. Who remembers my compliments to Terry? Or who remembers the fact that he didn't know? Even in as an observer, all we do is focus on the negative thing. Probably going, yes, he got nagged at. I'm sorry, Terry. I feel bad now. I do feel really bad. Sorry. Steve.
Sorry, it's a little bit more complicated on my iPad than it is on the laptop. I think just going back to what Di said and what you're talking about, the whole praise sandwich, that nearly came out completely differently there. I think it's really important that the learner understands what they're trying to improve. If it's feedback that's given by us, it's usually in our terms, it's not their terms. And also, if it's a conclusion or an idea that they've arrived to themselves, then generally it's better accepted by them that it's something that might require change or work, rather than something given by us. So if they've arrived at that, oh, okay, I need to improve on X, they're going to accept that a lot more if they get there themselves than they are by us saying, well, you did that wrong, so let's do that again.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. And you've just said, I think, what Sammy was alluding to a little bit earlier about, you know, it has to come from them first. I think it's vital. I think it's vital when it is even us as ADIs, when we do standards check training. There's quite a few of you guys I know do standards check training or training PDIs. And when you get that acknowledgement, when that person sees something that they can easily improve, it's much easier for any of us to think about something when we choose to do it ourselves. Thanks, Steve. Who's next? Linda. Lovely Linda.
I just wanted to say it was my fault that Terry wasn't listening earlier. I was distracting him by saying I couldn't get on the Zoom.
Don't Linda, leave it to me. I'll take the blame. Be quiet, be quiet.
So it's all down to me.
Anyway.
But if I'd have said, Terry, is there a reason? And then Terry would have been able to, you know.
Well, exactly.
Question.
Exactly.
Absolutely simple question. I'm still feeling bad about it.
Not as bad as me, though.
No.
But what I'd just like to say about feedback
Linda.
is...
Kev, have you got a question for everybody?
Oh, can I just finish, please?
I think I'll let Linda finish first. I think that would be a nice thing to do.
Oh, thanks. What I'd just like to say is, I think sometimes you can go in with preconceived...
I'm hoping my feed's going to carry on. If not...
Can you not hear?
I think Fiona's gone off the grid. We'll carry on.
So all I was going to say...
Can we ignore Fiona now? Can we just ignore her? Is that really bad of me to say that?
Party!
Uh-oh. She's gone.
Oh, what happens now?
We just carry on. It's fine. We just carry on as normal.
I don't know what to do. What's Fiona? Oh my God!
Terry, shut up. Linda, carry on what you were saying.
I think it's really
good. Can people
good.
stop interrupting Linda, please? Let her speak.
I'll get a freeze now.
Carry on, Linda.
I think you can just go in with preconceived ideas on faults. Oh God, don't do that, Ian. I think if you go in with preconceived ideas on faults without eliciting the feedback, you can't get as deep as you want to get. So I think by eliciting what they feel first of all, you can, their fault may be well different to what ours is. So we're actually getting two things. So that I'm not really making myself clear again. What they think needs improving may be something totally different to what we think it needs improving. I think that's what I'm trying to say. By just actually asking what they need to improve on, there might just be something totally different to what we think.
Yeah, so it's about perspectives then, isn't it, Linda? About their perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to give them good feedback as well as bad feedback. So get them to recognise the good bits as well as the faults, or the goal focused.
Yeah. And having a realistic view as to where they are, it's good for that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Sally and then Gary. Sally.
Okay, what I was going to say is by eliciting feedback, it increases motivation, and it also, we have more of an engagement with the client because it's about them and it's about what they're thinking, about what their thoughts are about their progress or not making progress. And as you said, it doesn't become judgmental because it's their opinion about their behavior. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you're right, Sally. Gary.
Yeah, I'd just like to extend a little bit on that. Is in my experience with eliciting feedback, drawing feedback from pupils. If we don't draw feedback from the pupil, we don't know what their real thoughts or feelings are. If the feedback's just coming from the instructor led, then we're just guessing what the problem is. I mean, for many years, years ago, I just used to give the praise sandwich, and I used to sort of guess what was wrong. But how many times was I wrong in diagnosing the problem? If I could have asked for feedback from the pupil, elicited from them, could find out their thoughts and feelings, it's so much easier because now the pupil's more motivated to achieve their aim. We don't know what they're thinking or feeling in any situation unless we ask them.
I like that word you use, motivated, because if they are coming up with their own solutions, then they are more motivated, aren't they? You know.
Yeah, they're more motivated, and I find that they're more involved in the lesson as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Terry, were you going to say something before when you did that thing, or was it just your little thing that you like to do still?
A bit of both, actually, Sammy.
Okay, because I've got you, then it's Di, then it's Steve. Okay, off you go.
I've got two things. One, I used to have an old boss many years ago, and he was the praise sandwich god. And he used to give me good, bad, good. And eventually, after a while, every time he gave me a compliment, I'd be thinking, oh, shit. Yeah, the Steve moment then. Oh, heck, what have I done wrong now? And that's, imagine how your pupils feel. If you're using, said it again, if you're using the praise sandwich a lot of the time, this is how they're going to feel as soon as you give them that bit of positive feedback. Secondly, playing devils, how can they possibly give you feedback if they don't know the standard required? Oh, crap, she's back.
Yes, it was Di next, then Steve, and then Fiona can take back over again.
Unless if you're happy. Okay, okay. Di next, then Steve.
Right, I don't want to answer Terry's question yet, but I just want to go back to this praise sandwich or even instructor-led feedback.
Frozen again. I think you should do it without me, guys.
The praise sandwich isn't the only bit of feedback that can be instructor-led, but unfortunately, instructor-led feedback can only be given by what the pupil is presenting. Therefore, it is behavioral feedback. So, the pupil is presenting a problem and we're seeing it and saying, right, that's a problem. What we don't know is actually what's going on in their heads. What we don't know is how they're feeling about something or what their beliefs are about something, which has actually caused a problem in the first place. And the only person who has the answers to that, and it's sort of answers Terry's question in a way as well. The only person who knows what's going on inside their head is them. And we can't guess that. So for me, that's the difference between eliciting feedback. It's actually opening up a little window inside of them to find out what's going on, which has caused this problem.
Yes, I think Fiona's gone again.
I'm still hearing voice. I just wondered if this would help the bandwidth if I turned my video off.
Yeah. Okay.
No, thank you. My internet. So just to break out, somebody's going next. Just to check, just for a second, if this carries on, I'm happy to just drop out and let Sammy take over. She was doing a wonderful job by the sounds of it. You don't need me at all.
I prefer you to do it, Fiona.
Okay. Okay.
I'm stepping out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. No, it's thank you, Di. Everything you said and more. Who was next? I've forgotten. I may well turn my video off, but I'm still here at the moment.
Yep. Steve, then Sally.
Steve, then Sally. Brilliant. Steve, then Sally. Got it.
Yeah, I think Di just kind of sort of said what I was about to say, and I was also thinking along the lines of like it being user friendly. Maybe I think when it's all coming from us, there's a potential for it to be like jargon and stuff like that. So stuff that they're not necessarily going to understand. And I think if we phrase it wrong, and I think there's that, the bad habit that I see sometimes is just that word good. Oh, good. Yeah, good. And yeah, good. But what? What was good? There is, the whole thing is, that drive was good. Oh, great. Cheers. It's, I think it has to be user friendly. It has to mean something. It can't just be said for the sake of saying.
Yeah, it is really good. Thank you, Steve. It is really good, really good. And I often say good. So thanks for pointing that out. Something else I've got to hear myself saying, and it's what was good. Yes, quite right. Be specific. Thanks, Steve. Sally.
I was just going to try to answer Terry's question about how will the client know whether or not, what kind of level they need to be at. People, when we are talking about eliciting feedback, but feedback itself is a two-way thing. It's not one way. And there are times that it's okay to give feedback to the client. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because it's eliciting and that's all it is. If there's information that they need, then it's okay to give. So okay.
Absolutely. I don't know if this was said before, but I know exactly what you mean, Sally. It's about that cycle, isn't it? About that. I remember Graham Hooper saying, it doesn't mean that you can't draw someone's attention to some form of negative. I'm going to carry on talking, although my screen's freezing, or your screens are freezing. Some form of, you can ask a question about something that wasn't so good, as Steve might cringe when I say. You can ask a question about it. I could say, yeah, go for it, Sammy. Go for it, Sammy. But you can ask a question about something.
I was willing to wait till he'd finished, Fiona.
All right. It just felt urgent, but yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
When it feels,
you know exactly what I mean. Questions specifically about.
Well, yes. I'm sorry, this broadcast has been interrupted again. No, what I was going to say was just to add a small little piece onto what Steve said about the word good, and about language that we use with our learners or our PDIs or whoever it is that we're in the car with, is that word perspective again. In what does the word good mean to you? So I just wanted to add that on, that any words that we're using is always good to ask. I always ask, what does the word risk mean to you, for instance? Because there's so many different views. Like how it started off at the beginning was looking at perspectives and different viewpoints and how we are all so different. And therefore we must find out what is in there.
Yeah.
In there.
Absolutely. Yeah, the more detail about the good thing. Thanks, Sammy. Teresa.
I wonder whether it's possible that we could be saying good, or if they're saying good, it's because they're unsure of what else to say. So it's a bit like saying nice. It's a bit sort of nondescript and it's a filler. It could be that you need time to get your thoughts together so that you can actually lead the conversation, or that they've got time to think about what you want. I think when you're with a client, sometimes you're sort of asking them to give you that feedback, whether that be verbal, or not, but they may not be sure what it is that you're looking for. So, so they might sort of use that as a sort of a breaker until they've like worked out. They're looking to please you, and to sort of there's still that balance in the relationship. They might still see you as an expert, and it could be down to the judgment and rapport side of things. So they're looking for, right, so she's asked me to tell me what I think about this particular roundabout or part of the route. You got mail, baby. Sorry, yeah. Apologies. But it could be that they're thinking to themselves, well, what is it that she wants from me? And they're looking for the reassurance. And so, yeah, maybe the good or the, yeah, it was all right, is a filler because they're unsure. And they don't know how to give you that verbal. I think the non-verbal feedback's probably in some ways far more powerful than any verbal feedback you get, unless your rapport is really, really good.
Was that my non-verbal? Did anyone notice the non-verbal feedback? It was quite subtle.
Yes, where's that brick? Woo.
Oh, well, I might as well offend Teresa as well. I've already done Terry. Let's see if I can offend everybody before the end of the. Sorry, Teresa. Sorry, Terry. Who was that? Sally.
Can I just touch on what Terry said at the beginning? Because he said that he wanted to know a little bit more about the barriers of eliciting feedback, what the barriers could be.
Yeah.
And so is that, and I'm assuming he was talking about the barriers for a trainer's perspective, for ourselves, when we're going to be thinking about whether or not it's going to work or not. Because a lot of people seem to feel as though trying to elicit feedback's not going to work because they don't know what they're doing. So we need to tell them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to hold back because I always want to answer first. Kev put his hand up. Sally, I think there's a lot of it's a good point you brought back out. Kev and then Terry. Kev and then Terry.
First, Fiona.
Sorry?
Steph put a hand up, then Terry.
Who? Oh, Steph.
Can you hear me?
Steph down there. I can't see your hand, Steph. You'd have to do that. Right, Steph, then Kev, then Terry. This is working on my brain. Sorry, Steph.
That's okay. It's just to kind of change it around a little bit of what about feedback to us about our performance, and how do we elicit that from the pupil? How are we performing with them? Are we coaching them or training them in the right manner? And how does everyone go about that? I always say at the beginning, at the end of the lesson, for both, let me know if what we're doing is right for you. If you want me to change anything, just please, speak to me. We're both here to learn from one another. And I just wondered what other people did.
Yeah. So there's a good couple of points here that we need to go back to. So this is a new topic. I don't know where people want to go. So I've written it down. because it's a really good point. Kev, if you could go, we'll come back to that, Steph. Is that okay? Is that okay? Because it's a really good point, really good point. I just wonder, because Sally brought something up that Terry said earlier that Kev put his hand up to, and it's like, so Kev, please.
I'm going to try and answer both of them. And what I'm going to say is barriers are probably one that we put up and one that the student puts up. And getting feedback to us from the student or client, whoever it may be, I believe is all about our questioning technique and our listening skills. And the way that, how would we know that the client is learning? Potentially. You have to ask questions, because like I said earlier, you have to go to the thoughts and the feelings, and you have to get them and their views. And very similar when it comes back to basing it around us, if we ask questions of to the student of our performance, of how we've done today, how did you find my questioning, how did you find what I did, then you're going to get probably more of a rounded conversation. I think it was touched on a little bit earlier. So it's all about a conversation. And when you look at the bigger picture, if you was looking above from it, if you look at that conversation, what was happening within that conversation, and you can always get a good feel of what's happening, and that brings barriers down within the conversation. I don't know if that answers that properly, but it's a link between the two, the barriers and the feedback to us. One is the questioning, two, it's the listening, and then just watching what happens and what's being said.
It's also the words Steve was alluding to.
Yeah,
it's the words. Yeah, Teresa. If it's the same thing, otherwise I've got to come for Steph first. Brilliant. Thank you, Teresa.
It's all right. I thought Terry was going before me, but I just want to... Okay. Sorry, Terry. I just on what Kev said about the questioning, I think it needs to be the right question, and it's choosing those really, really carefully. So that you get the clues that you want to their thoughts and feelings, because I think sometimes we go into that eliciting feedback with a preconceived idea of the reply we want. And I think it's deciding on what it is, what's the information we want from the client. Is it that we want them to fault identify and tell us what we already know, but for them to identify it for themselves? Or do we want to get to the root and find out what they feel and think about something, so that then you can actually get a lot deeper and get them to change their behavior as a result?
Totally with you on that one.
So when you sort
totally with you, their thoughts and feelings. You've all frozen, which means my internet connections is dodgy again. Terry, if you speak, that would be wonderful. And I apologise. I had remembered that you.
Teresa, carry on.
Teresa, carry on.
Are you sure?
We'll just get rid of Fiona.
Yeah, I think we sort of stop at the side of the road sometimes and say to them, so what did you feel about that? And they automatically assume that there's something wrong. That can be an issue. And so it's sort of trying to reassure them that we actually do want to know what they think, and it's not just about them fault analysing. It's part of it, but not all of it. And one of my favourite phrases is use the clues, because when you're having that conversation, that they'll be giving off more information than just the verbals. So it's like using the rest of it. What are they hiding? How deep can you get? And again, that's down to sort of the rapport and us trying our best not to be judgmental and having a preconceived idea.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, all that. Terry.
I think, to talk about barriers, I think that eliciting feedback could actually be a massive barrier to moving towards coaching. Because if you say to an ADI or PDI who's not coaching oriented, try to elicit feedback, and they'll ask a question and they'll get the reply, or something like, I don't know, you tell me, or the instructor. They'll go, right, see, coaching don't work, it's rubbish. without understanding the process. So I think with eliciting feedback, it needs practice. It needs endeavour. What a long word for a Monday morning that was. And then I say it again. It's not Monday, is it? What day? It's Tuesday, isn't it? Oh yeah. It needs endeavour, and you need to practice. Possibly not in the car. Just practice on a family member, and just get used to dragging stuff out. So don't let your attempts to elicit feedback be a barrier in itself. Did that make any sense at all?
Absolutely, total sense. It does. Brilliant. I love it. Following on from that, I believe that Kev hasn't put his hand up, because something I always think about, and I hear Kev say when he's done that, and Kev, what is the thing you say?
To what? Sorry, I was writing.
Yeah, I know, I don't, but it's, when you have that kind of barrier, and it's when we hear the answer that we think, and the ADI or the PDI is going to kind of cut off, and you always say, and anything else.
Oh yeah, my what else? What
And
else?
what else? Yeah.
What else?
And what else?
What
And
else?
Yeah. Sorry, Kev, I know you were writing. Yeah, I got you, Sammy.
Sorry. I was busy working.
Yeah. I've put you all on the small screen just in case it's not working on the big screen. So, and I'm sorry, I keep dropping off. I'm not falling asleep either, but I do keep dropping off. Thank you, Kev. Was there anything else, Kev? And what else?
What else? Sorry, you've lost me again now.
I've just done it again. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Sammy?
Yes, if I can remember it now. It's been so long. No, I'm joking. I wanted to just come back to the question about how do we know that we are doing a good job, and that is reflection. And what reflection does is it makes you more self-aware. And being aware of yourself, I mean, if you've got a low self-esteem, that's going to form a barrier, isn't it, to you performing to a certain level, because you don't believe you're good enough or whatever. And so if you reflect on things like, I asked a question and it got a really rubbish answer, make sure you reflect on it, see what other question you can ask. And just being that constant reflection is what's going to help you be aware of yourself and how you're performing. And as you are growing through that reflection, because it always promotes growth, reflection, in my view, it helps you to become aware of others, to recognize it in others, where they are in that. And I think that gives you that kind of an empathy and insight into somebody else, that they have things going on just as much as you have.
Absolutely.
So
it's, sometimes I totally agree with what you're saying, Sammy, and I'm thinking about myself, and something I've noticed of myself is sometimes I'm looking for something that I don't need to get from the driver. Sometimes I'm looking for validation or something from them, and I shouldn't be seeking that from them. They just need a driving lesson. That's what they're paying me for. So the feedback I think you're talking about, and that how can I get better, it should come from within. So yeah, totally with you on that. Gary, let's go to you, and then Steph, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute, and then Sally. So Gary first.
Just extending on what
Sammy
just extending on what Sammy was saying, the importance of self-reflection and self-awareness. Gibbs is very good for that. Sick to death of Gibbs on the BTEC 4, but it does make you very aware of where you are and what you want to be. But I wonder, does anybody use Gibbs on pupils? I've asked pupils run through Gibbs with them, but not so long-winded, but just brief sentences. And I find that you really do find out a lot about pupils when they when they're more self-aware and they're more reflecting themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. So, Beth, I'll come back to you in a bit, but I've got you. Right. Sally, then Di, then Steve.
Hi, sorry. I'm just going to go back on something. I think it was, I don't remember, I think it was Steve that said something about negative feedback. Because if we tend to focus on faults and just target faults and always have this eliciting feedback based on something what they've done wrong, then subconsciously we may be getting our client to have an automatic negative response when the driving examiner asks them to pull over. So eliciting positive feedback is more valuable over what they've not done so well, in my opinion, because it increases motivation. And somebody used the word why, that if they've done something good, what was good about it? Again, increases the motivation for them to continue to do that.
Yeah. Just to repeat, Sally, do you mean pulling over and nothing was wrong, everything was good, and getting them to reflect?
Yeah. Get them to have a look and get them to actually think what actually went well. And there's times where you'll notice that when you pulled them over and asked them what went well, they're actually looking for something negative.
Absolutely.
They're so used to looking for negative.
And it's very hard for us to break the cycle because we're always dragged back into it. We're always dragged back into it because that's what they are used to as well. So
Sometimes
they're used to it. Yeah.
It's really, sometimes what I do is I play a little game with them and just about feedback is I'll ask them their opinion about what something they've done, and knowing that they're going to come out with something negative, and then I'll challenge them for the negative. Okay, then, so what you're saying to me that this is what happened, right? So then it raises their awareness that, hang on, they're looking for something negative, that they should be accepting what they did correct.
Yeah.
And again, it increases motivation and engagement.
Get that happy Bobby pupil sitting in the side seat. Excellent. Thank you, Sally, for bringing that up. Yeah, Di.
Thanks, Fiona. Just going back to Steph's question again, leading on from what Sammy was saying, if I can remember now. Okay, so about feedback from your students. If we are asking our students to give us feedback, in other words, we are eliciting feedback from our students about their performance, and we know the advantages of that, why would we then ask our students for feedback about us? So we're asking our students to self-evaluate in order to elicit feedback. And if we are the trainer or the instructor, if a student is engaged in the learning, and we can normally tell that they're engaged in the learning, then for me, that's good enough feedback that I'm doing a good enough job. But I think Sammy is absolutely right. If something is working really well, or if something doesn't seem to be working as well, then both of those situations need to be reflected on. What's going well, you need to reflect on in order to repeat it. And if it's not going well, then you need to reflect on it to ensure that it gets better. But I think asking a student how we're doing is a bit like them asking us how they're doing. It's exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Di. I totally, I do agree. See what you mean. I see what you mean. Terry, I think half an hour ago, and Neil. So
it was
Terry.
Steve first, but he's gone to his old boiler.
Yeah.
Steve, you found your old boiler yet? Is he gonna come back? No, I'll go next then.
Go next then.
You snooze, you lose. I've only got a comment from Facebook, from Vic Francis, our resident blues guy.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, never, ever, 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 ever in a trillion, billion, gillion, zillion years get into a debate with Vic. Okay, he will scare the. Just don't do it. Okay, you've been warned. Okay, it's what Vic has to say. and it's kind of linked to what Sally said as well. That's a valid point. I don't know what valid point it was a while ago. Quite often they say, what have I done wrong when pulled up? Often I pull up alongside the road to give praise as well, and be very specific about what I am praising, and tell them I just wanted to say that I was impressed with X, Y, Z. That's all. That's what they've done.
That's it. Yeah. Highlighting the good stuff. Nice. Well done, Vic. I forgot. Oh, Steve, apparently you were next, but Terry interrupted. Steve's forgotten.
Sorry. Yeah, it has. What was I going to say? Yeah. Sorry, a few things have happened in between. I was just thinking, I can't remember who was saying, I think it might have been Di again as well, about eliciting feedback from them. I think it's a surefire way of gauging whether or not they're actually listening, whether or not they're actually taking anything in. I think it's very easy to do the whole phantom feedback thing, where you're sort of feeding answers across and they're just being parroted back in perhaps a slightly different phrasing. Yeah, I just think it's a nice way to test whether actually anything's sinking in from it, rather than just, saying what we think they're doing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry, Steve, were you carrying on? No.
I was just going to say, I probably had that all set up a lot better before everything kicked off here. So if it didn't make sense, I apologise.
No, I think it did. I think it's one of the things I noticed the most about when I started to change to a more coaching approach, was how suddenly every single lesson was different to every other lesson I've ever had, because there was nothing predictable. From the very first question, how are you doing today? There is nothing that's the same in any lesson ever. And that's what I've noticed. So this eliciting feedback and really all about them really does change every single session for me. And I don't know about everybody else, but there's nothing that's the same. Terry, you were waving your hand about like a helicopter.
It's the only way I can get noticed, Fiona. But anyway, moving on. So, she's frozen again.
That's a lovely picture of her.
Isn't it? We should frame that and put that up.
Take a picture. Can someone screenshot that?
That's like Mrs. Brown, a younger version of Mrs. Brown, isn't it? Where are her boys? Anyway. Sorry.
Teresa, you go next.
Thank you. If I can remember what I was going to say. Oh yeah. So Fiona just said about having something different in each lesson. Control yourself, boys. That's one of the things I love about doing, say, for instance, I've got 2 or 3 people at the same level, and we may have already decided that next lesson is going to be maneuvers, for instance, and all 3 of them are completely different in the way that they respond to you, and the questions are completely different to each of them, and it's just like an ad-lib play. So you get them in the car, and even though the lesson topic might be completely the same, the whole play out of it is so different. It's just what gives me the job satisfaction that I get, because like obviously they're individuals, but you think that you could play it from a script, but you can't, because you're getting different information from every single one of them, and they've all got their different ways, and and the way that they communicate with you as well. So it just makes the job all the more satisfying, I think.
Absolutely. I think I'm assuming you followed on from my spiel, Teresa. I fell off the internet yet again.
Yeah, Terry sort of cut in there for a second, but really didn't. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm ready to speak now, Mrs. Brown.
Go, Terry. Go, Terry.
I've got two things to say, first of all. One's a bit of a moan. All right. First moan is, the moan is, Neil, can you please shut up and let someone else have a go?
Oh, yeah, Neil was ages ago.
Yeah, you missed me out, but never mind. Carry on.
Just giving everyone a praise sandwich today, Neil. Don't worry about it. And the second point is, guess who's next, Neil? Get ready. Eliciting feedback can work wonders for your rapport, because you've got these 17, 18-year-olds who quite often have never really been listened to. And all of a sudden you've got this adult, well, maybe not mental age of an adult, but adult, who's suddenly interested in what they've got to say. And that can work wonders for rapport, it really can. So another big up for eliciting feedback rather than giving.
Absolutely.
Neil, over to you.
Neil, over to you. And I do apologise. I am really distracted. So my listening skills are really poor and my attention is, I'm just really distracted. Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, no worries. Going back to what Sally was saying, really, when you pull them over like that, it actually increases their focus. And like Terry says, when they realise people are listening to them, that improves the focus as well, which improves results all round.
Ah, there we go. First time results has come out of it. So eliciting feedback produces results, maybe. Thanks, Neil. I think it does. Totally agree. Totally agree. I'm looking at the time. I know we started late. Half the time you were carrying on partying without me. Kev, we'll come to you shortly for your wonderful summary. Has anyone else? Where's Steph gone?
She's gone.
Oh, she has gone. Oh, I was going to ask her. If we got to if her thing was mentioned. Steve, go for it, please.
A quick question actually. Do you think it's possible to elicit feedback if a goal hasn't been set?
Oh.
Probably should have asked this at the beginning, but not at the end.
Tell me more, Steve. Tell me more.
Teresa's going to go for that one. Well done, Teresa. Go.
Based on what I've been doing in my BTEC, I might be off the mark here a little bit, but the goal obviously being part of the GROW model, obviously you can get feedback from going from any other place within that GROW model. So it might be that you ask them for options or as to what they want to do. So technically that's sort of leading to setting a goal. It could be, what did we do last time? So that necessarily isn't the goal, but it's still giving feedback because it's finding out what they remembered. And I suppose in some respect, the reality of where they are at that point in time without even a goal, you can still have that. So I would have said, yes, you can get feedback from them. It might not even be goal related. It might not even be driving related. You can still get something from them without a goal being set.
Anyone else got anything to say? I'm sorry, Teresa, I missed some of that. I fell off yet again.
Yeah, I think you can elicit the feedback around a weakness as well without setting a goal. So what they're actually doing at the time, you can get the feedback from that without having a goal set.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking for some feedback from my internet provider. Anyone else got anything? I'll die. And maybe Sally. Sally did I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah.
Die first, and then you, Sally.
Yeah, we mustn't forget really that there is another type of feedback, which is actually in risk management, about giving feedback around a safety critical incident. And that generally comes from the instructor. That's not always elicited because it's safety critical. Sometimes we have to just say, look, you need to do this because otherwise this will happen. So I think there are odd places where we might give feedback where it's more effective or more efficient than it would be to elicit feedback, which would be more around the goal.
Yeah, it's kind of useless hanging upside down in a bush saying, so what might you do differently next time? Is that it?
How did you feel about that?
How do you feel about that?
How do you feel right now? Yeah, absolutely. Sally, bring us back down to something more
I
sensible.
forgot what I was going to say then. I forgot what Steve. Oh, Steve said. He said, Steve, what did you say? I started thinking about risk management now, because what Diane just said is what we all spoke about earlier. The listening or feedback in general is two-way information. That's all it is. It's a way of giving and receiving information, whether or not it's body language, whether or not it's verbal, whether or not it's listening. It's all those skills that also increases rapport, as Terry said earlier. What I was going to say about goal, whether or not is it, can you elicit feedback when there's no goal? To me, first thing came into my head was, of course, because the purpose of eliciting feedback would be to establish a goal.
Yeah, well, that's that initial thing at the beginning. So absolutely, I think yes and no and all sorts of everything's.
Yeah, because I was going to say, what happens is you're raising their awareness of how they're thinking and how they're feeling and how that motivates their behavior, which then eventually during the questioning techniques, as Terry mentioned, and you're listening, you're able to establish the goal, aren't you? With what next step you're going to do.
Yeah, isn't that one of the first, one of the first question we ask, isn't that all about GDE and one of the highest levels, whichever one you want to do, 4 or 5, I'm not fussed. How are you feeling today? Because it's all about the journey, isn't it? So it's all about that initial drive. What is that person doing? What is that person doing? Loads of people have got pets and it just makes me want to go and get the cat here. The dog and the cat and the other cat, but one cat in particular. No, I totally agree, Sally. And it's about really the most important bit about a journey is that driver in that moment, because everything rests on that. We all know it. We all recognize it. When you get that phone call from a hospital or something horrible, that person in that moment is at risk purely because their head is not in the driving. And when we start to do that with the driver from the very first lessons, they're always going to be conscious of. So yeah, that's an extreme version. But again, I've stuck my money in. Kev, have I forgotten anyone? Neil, have I forgotten you again, or are you all right? Is everyone all right? Shall I get Kev to do his? Yep. Kev, can you do your thing, please?
Okay, here we go. So giving feedback is about our opinion and thoughts. Eliciting feedback is about solution focused, raising awareness, their thoughts and feelings and reflection. And the old style of feedback, we mentioned the praise sandwich, it softens the blow, it's a negative way of giving feedback. And Terry's, one of his courses, someone said it's a diplomatic slap in the face. And it's hard to remember the good things when you're doing the old style instructor-led praise sandwich feedback. What we need to do is to get the learner to realize what they need to do. And they then will be able to accept what needs changing if it comes from them. Preconceived ideas and thoughts, I mean, you can't really go too deep or deeper understanding of the learner's thoughts or perspective. Eliciting feedback increases motivation and it's non-judgmental. And the praise sandwich negates praise or positive feedback. And it doesn't really touch on the behavioral problem. Thoughts and beliefs can sort out the situation. So if you target them, they can come up with their own solution. It's also user friendly if it comes from them, because it creates a two-way conversation. And it also means that you can listen to them. And if they said it was good, you can ask a question like, what does good mean to you? So we mentioned about a filler and how they respond to you is because they might just be doing it for a simple, this is what you want to hear. So just be careful of what words they're using. We spoke about barriers. We put most of the barriers up, and it could be our lack of understanding. It could be our lack of questioning or listening techniques, or not picking up on the non-verbals. We don't really touch on the root cause, and the rapport's not very good if you're putting barriers up. It also means we're not really understanding the process of the coaching. Terry mentioned endeavour as well, and to go away and practice, and also think about what else can we do, is another way. And getting feedback to us from the student. Sometimes it's through reflection, which promotes growth, and there was a technique called Gibbs that people mentioned. Focusing on positive feedback, pulling up on the left. People sometimes think they're pulling up on the left because they've done something wrong, but it might just be to tell them that they've done something well and you just wanted to tell them. When positive feedback is used, it's the students engaged in the process and learning is happening, and you might get some different information from the student than one you was expecting. Feedback will help with rapport. And in driver training, give effective feedback for safety critical incidences, because you need to tell them if they're not actually okay with the process, you might need to tell them what's going to happen, because you've got to keep everyone safe. And my closing thoughts were, have a conversation. So if you can have just a conversation with your students and show a genuine interest in them, that will increase the feedback. Not be on your agenda, be on theirs, and be flexible with the way you approach it.
Nice.
There you go. Maybe finished.
Yeah.
I wrote loads there.
It was loads. Yeah, well done, everybody. That's fantastic. Well done for ignoring me and my dropping out issues. I do apologise for that one more time. I always like to think of this rapport, the feedback, and this kind of thing as a circle rather than the backwards and forwards. Backwards and forwards always seems like a bit of an argument to me. Whereas I do like the roundness of a conversation, how everybody interrupts. It's just what we're doing here. So the feedback we're getting is wonderful. I'm going to carry on with Thursday, the 26th at 9:30 is when our next Why Don't You is.
Is she frozen again?
She has.
Thursday the 26th, and it's on Why Don't You Be Mindful, I think. Is that what it's on? Or have I just made it up?
I'm not sure.
Right, yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, sounds right.
You did it.
What's the one I got for tomorrow at 2 o'clock? I've got a Why Don't You
Coach in Comfort.
Coach in Comfort, yeah.
That's all about, that one's all about if you want to practice your coaching skills. So we're getting people to come along and just practice some coaching skills in a nice, safe place where we just go through practicing coaching. You choose what you want to coach, and then we all join in and help each other become better coaches.
Okay.
And that's tomorrow at 2.
Okay.
That's only available for first six people. It's not a free fall like this.
Because of the time factors and because
Gone
of
again already.
We've limited it to 6 people. So,
okay.
Shall we
well done, Keith. You're in. Well done.
end the Facebook feed? Neil?
What?
Shall we end the Facebook feed?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Fiona going to go and build a snowman before next week.
Thanks everybody on Facebook for watching.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.